People often complain, God, why don't you stop all the evil in the world? And what if this atheist got exactly what he was asking for and asking God to strike him dead, and then God did? Let's watch this clip. It is going to be explicit. There's a lot of language in it.
But in the bullshit department, a businessman can't hold a candle to a clergyman. Because I got to tell you the truth, folks. I got to tell you the truth.
By that, he just means a religious person, by the way.
When it comes to bullshit, big time, major league bullshit, you have to stand in awe of the all-time champion of false promises and exaggerated claims, religion. No contest. No.
You know, one thing that I find funny about this before I move on, what he's saying is not funny at all. But what's ironic about this is that he says religion. When he says religion, he does not mean religion. He doesn't mean religious people. He doesn't have any beef with religions. He has beef with Christianity. I found that a lot of these people very regularly, they don't have a problem with religions at all. If I'm Muslim, they wouldn't care at all. If I told them I was Hindu or Buddhist, they wouldn't have a problem with it. But when I tell them I love Jesus, people get really upset. Interesting.
Oh, it's contest. Religion easily has the greatest bullshit story ever told. Think about it. Religion has actually convinced people that there's an invisible man living in the sky who watches everything you do every minute of every day. And the invisible man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever.
Do you know who the government is? Like the person, the government. Do you know him? Well, no, obviously you don't know him because the government isn't an individual. It's a group of people that come together to make executory decisions for our government. Imagine if I use his same exact logic and mocking and criticizing the government for criticizing us or putting rules and regulations on me and saying if I don't follow these 10 or more like 1,000 things, that I go to jail for those things. And then I'm going to have to stay in there in prison forever if I don't do what they say. That's the exact same thing he's saying. But if I asked him if he's okay with justice, he would say okay. But if I asked him if he would be okay with God being just, he would say I'm not okay with it anymore. I wonder if he lives justly or not. I think I know the answer to that too.
Till the end of time. But he loves you.
So his mock is he's mocking and saying the hypocrisy in Christianity, saying that God is a loving God, but he also sends people to hell. Well, no, love is just. And if God was love and he wasn't justice, he wouldn't be able to be loving. What would you think if somebody like Hitler just got to go to heaven because God just was all loving and all forgiving? Well, you would say that God's not just anymore because he's not giving somebody the due penalty for the crime that they committed. In the same way that we have today in a court of law, if somebody commits a crime, murders somebody, we don't just go, oh, it's okay. Like, I get it. We're just going to love you through this right now. No, that wouldn't be justice and nobody would be okay with it. So why would we be okay with it in a scenario like this? Well, again, he doesn't want to hear that kind of reality. Let me skip forward a little bit further here.
And enjoy yourself. And for those of you who look to the Bible for moral lessons and literary qualities, I might suggest a couple of other stories for you. You might want to look at The Three Little Pigs. That's a good one. Has a nice happy ending. I'm sure you'll like that. Then there's Little Red Riding Hood, although it does have that X-rated part where the big bad wolf actually eats the grandmother, which I didn't care for, by the way. And finally, I've always drawn a great deal of moral comfort from Humpty Dumpty. The part I like the best, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Why do you think this man has such a hatred for Jesus, like the God of the Bible? Well, the big thing is he doesn't like the moral accountability that this God makes him live by. Because Jesus has a standard that he wants him to live by, and he knows that he's not living by that standard, so he'd rather just mock it and ridicule it and say it doesn't exist than to actually submit to that thing. And then he wants to compare it to things like Humpty Dumpty or whatever, which, mind you, can I mention for a second the irony in somebody who's going to criticize the Bible's moral standards, or maybe lack thereof in his opinion, when he's an atheist. He has no moral standard. He can't call anything right and wrong in the first place. He can say, I feel like this is right or wrong. He can say, in my opinion, this is right or wrong, but he can't say there's any objective truth or morality because as an atheist, there's no such thing as objectivity at all. Everything is just molecules and motions. We're just dancing to the beat of our own drum. There's no such thing as any sort of moral reality. It's just his feeling, his vibe versus my opinion and my feeling and my vibe. So at the best, he's stealing from the Bible standards to tell the Bible that it's not real in the first place. You're taking the morals that God gave you to say that God is immoral. It's, again, like one of the most contradictory phrases you could say.
That's because there is no Humpty Dumpty and there is no God. None, not one, no God, never was. In fact, I'm going to put it this way. If there is a God, if there is a God, may he strike this audience dead. See, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Everybody's okay. All right? Tell you what. I'll raise the stakes. I'll raise the stakes a little bit. If there is a God, may he strike me dead. See? Nothing.
He didn't get struck dead on this stand-up skit that he did, but a few months later he did. He was not killed, but he died a few months later. Let me show you the actual report so that you see that I'm not making it up. This had came out 14 years ago, and if you look at when he died, I believe it was in 2008 that he passed away. Let me see. Yep, died in 2008 of June 22. Cause of death: congestive heart failure. Interesting, isn't it? Be careful what you wish for, because somebody who's going to be mocking God, and we sometimes wonder why God doesn't answer for some of this harshness and cruelty in the world and people mocking God and getting away with it. He unfortunately did not, or maybe we should say thankfully did not. It's very funny how we see these people mock and ridicule God and call him absolutely wrong when these same people have no absolute standard in the first place. Atheists and agnostics, the best that you can do is say, in my opinion or my feeling, it's not right, but you can't say there's any sort of objective truth on anything. So somebody like him, the best that he's got is to say, I don't feel like this is right. That's the best he's got. He can't say that anything is objectively right or wrong. And it's funny that people like him, and I will show a few more clips in some future videos of other comedians mocking God, and it shows their caricaturization of these of the faith that we have, and 90% of it, by the way, is a criticism of Catholicism, and even that is an inaccurate criticism of Catholicism. If you're looking at what the Bible actually says for itself, and you're just not taking Benny Hinn and all of these prosperity teachers and name it and claim it and give me your money for an extra double portion, then they have very few legs to stand on when it comes to any sort of even attempt at a criticism whatsoever. They're just using the idea of a God existing and thinking there's a spaghetti monster in the sky. And there's not much more that they can go with an argument for this stuff, because, again, they don't have anything to stand on. Because in their worldview, somebody like a Hitler is not wrong. Somebody like a Pol Pot is not wrong for murdering millions upon millions of people. They can say that they feel like it's not their vibe, but you can't say it's objectively wrong. And we as people have the law of God written on our heart, as it says in Romans, and we intuitively know the difference between right and wrong because that law has been written on our heart. So we don't even need somebody to tell us. We don't even need to be Christian to know right and wrong, because God has already laid it on our hearts. If it's been of any benefit to you, subscribe and check out this video for more.